here live or watching the replay and you hear lots of noise, like coming from the outside, we're working on an outside project right now, and I need to actually get out and help Joe with it. That's why I've got my warm clothes on again, because I'm heading right back outside after I get done here. We've left the pruning for way too long. We've got to get it done. We're doing another burn pile, and basically just still getting rid of trash after a year of living here. But anyhow, I think I'm on. Yep, my little video just showed up. Mute this. So we got some really good questions, just actually two, and one of them, it's stuff you know, but you kind of like know intuitively. So I went back and I actually got into some of my books and read some things to make sure that I'm telling you the right things. But Sandy asked a great question, and she wanted to know about different solvents working, and are they all the same? Are they different? How does that work? So anyhow, I'm going to be talking about that, and I'm also going to be talking about another question that came up right after that one, and it was about dual extractions and infusion. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'll give you some basics. One of the interesting things about herbalism is that you'll read one thing from one herbalist and you'll read another thing from another herbalist, and then herbalists kind of develop their own ways of doing things, and they develop their own belief systems about what works. And they're all fairly different. So, that's why it's important to kind of find the people that resonate with you, who you trust, because that way, you can go to that source and go, okay, I know she's right on. Like, I've got probably 5 different herbalists who I look up to get information that I know is really good. So anyhow, we're going to be talking about those things. The other thing I wanted to maybe do today, if we have time, is I wanted to talk about usnea a little bit. Got some usnea here, and the double infusion process, because I'm going to be actually doing this. I've been putting it off for a long time. I figured I could just go ahead and do it on video for you. So, and then it's done and it's on video and you can see it. So anyhow, we're going to be doing that as well. And really fast, I've been giving more thought to the subscription site. Honestly, I am like 99.9% sure I'm doing it. I would like to start it in June. But that's like in 2 weeks. So I'm gonna see if I can work really hard and get that going. But for people, I've already decided to. It's going to be an herb a month with a hard focus, lots of projects, videos, recipes, things like that, so that whoever wants to be in this group can really dive deep into an herb a month and learn that way as well. So it's going to be kind of an adjunct to the course. So I'm excited about that. I'm happy to get that going. Anyhow, let's go ahead and start on the topics of the week. So we're going to be talking about which solvents are best. And those 5 solvents I'm going to be talking about today are alcohol, water, glycerin, vinegar, and oil. Those are probably the 5 most common menstruums that herbalists use to extract the chemicals from the herbs. And so I'll go ahead and just address all of them. Now, keep in mind that herbalists will say different things depending on how they learned and who they learned from. So I'm just going to say that right up front. And I have my specific beliefs that I go with too. But let's go ahead and we'll just start off with alcohol. And first I want to say too, they're not all the same. Some people say, yes, you can go ahead and tincture an herb in alcohol and get the same result from vinegar. Well, you can't. It just doesn't work that way because the solvents work completely differently. If you take an alcohol and compare it to a vinegar, which is an acid, sorry, you've got 2 totally different animals there. And then if you take water, which is a polarizing menstruum, and only attaches to certain things, then you know what? Another totally different animal. Same with an oil, and a glycerin. So I'm going to give you an overview of the different menstruums. Now, number one, alcohol. Alcohol, as you know, comes in different strengths. You can get different proofs, and half of that proof is the percentage of the alcohol. So, like my favorite alcohol to use, and I'll talk about why this is my 80 proof is my favorite. It's 40% alcohol, and then it's 60% water. Okay, so knowing that, I know that I've got a nice strong alcohol as well as some water. So let's go ahead and talk about what alcohol does, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about why I prefer the lower proofs, like 80 to 100 proof alcohol. But alcohols, they will extract really, really well. Essential oils, resins with high alcohol, like Everclear strength alcohol. Resins are really hard, okay, so you do need a higher strength alcohol. Alkaloids, glycosides, like your carbohydrates, acrids and acids, which include the bitters. So those kinds of constituents are really well extracted in alcohol, and that's most of them, okay? So that's another reason why alcohol is my favorite, because you have a broad spectrum of constituents that are extracted in alcohol. Alcohol does not extract minerals, or gums, or mucilage well. Last week in the group, a question came up about marshmallow, and so marshmallow, leaf versus the root. Well, the leaf doesn't have as much mucilage as the root does. It's still very soothing, and it's still anti-inflammatory and demulcent, but it's not, doesn't have as much of the slimy stuff that the root has. So, you know, in terms of if you're using an alcohol as your solvent and you want to use some marshmallow, then I would choose the leaf, because it's not going to give you that slime. You know, I have a tincture in my storeroom, which I've been meaning to dump out. It's actually got a lot of that slime at the bottom, because I created it back in the, gosh, I think I made it like 5 years ago. And, but it's a great example of what happens in an alcohol with mucilage. It just doesn't work real well. It's not pretty at all. So there's that. And then, yeah, gums, mucilage. So I said no to what alcohol does not extract well. So if you're looking for a nutritional boost, or if you're looking for the constituents like in chickweed that might help you lose a little weight or whatever, alcohol is not going to be the best choice. But pretty much in general, if you're deciding on a solvent, going with alcohol, great choice, okay? Number two, I chose water next. A lot of people will go in order of strength. I'm going in order of my favorites. Water, even though it's just water, is an excellent menstruum for a lot of things. So let's go ahead and talk about what water will extract. Water is great with minerals. So where alcohol is not, water is. In some ways, they're very opposite. Water extracts mucilage very, very well. So if you want to have a really strong demulcent and soothing tincture or extract, and you want to use something like marshmallow root, then water would be the best thing to use for that. Tannins, your astringent herbs, are well extracted in water. So like if you have a tea and you make a strong infusion of that tea, you know, the longer you let it steep, it's going to get really kind of bitter, and you'll taste the tannins. That's what's happening. The water is extracting all those constituents from the herb really well. Okay, starches and carbohydrates. These are found in your sweeter herbs, your tonic, more tonic herbs. Okay, so water does a really good job with those. And then your aromatics, your bitters. Water extracts the bitters pretty well as well as alcohol. Now, some bitters aren't all the same. So some bitters do better in alcohol, some do better in water. And now let me just go back to alcohol for a minute and the proofs. This is exactly why, right here, I like to use 80 proof and 80 to 100 proof. 80 is my favorite. It's most common, it's the cheapest, and I just like using that proof because you're getting a combination of alcohol at 40%, which is like a medium grade ethanol, to your water. I think it's perfect. but that's my opinion. You'll find herbalists who go, oh no, you have to use this high proof alcohol, you have to use 195 proof to get the strongest extract. Well, no, not really. It depends on what you're trying to extract. So, you know, if you're looking for a nice medicinal tincture, most of your herbs are going to do very, very well with 80 proof to 100 proof alcohol. So keep that in mind. Okay, are there questions about any of this? Yeah. Oh, and water. Let me just say, water does not extract essential oils well, or any kind of oils, and resins not very well either. So obviously, you know, you can do that. Some people back in the Middle East, where frankincense is from, they'll powder their frankincense, and it will extract a little bit in the water. And I think they just drink it. But in general, resins, a little iffy in water. Okay. Let's see here. Melinda says, oh, you just answered it. Good. Oh, great. Melinda, you're rendering beeswax? That is so awesome. I envy you. I want bees so bad. Do you sell your beeswax by any chance? You've got a buyer here if you do. I love buying beeswax from real, honest to goodness, you know, small bee farms. Melinda, I have wondered that myself. If someone takes the tincture and gets pulled over, will they be in trouble? I'm going to say probably not, unless you're drinking a bottle of tincture. I mean, if you're taking like a standard dose, you're taking a half a teaspoon or less. So I don't think that's going to get you in any trouble. You know, and as for having alcohol on your body, okay, so like I used to be a school teacher, and I didn't use aspirin, I didn't use Advil, didn't use Tylenol, didn't use Midol, don't use any of those things, haven't for years. And what I did keep in my purse was willow bark tincture, because if I got a little tension headache or something, it took it away. And so that was my substitute for aspirin. Well, I always wondered, you know, because alcohol is not allowed in any shape or form on school property, but I had it in my purse. Now, is it an alcohol if you're using it like that, or you know, like you're guzzling it, or is it a medicinal tincture like an aspirin would be? So that was always, if I ever got questioned about it, and people knew I had tinctures, but I just figured, hey, I would just say, you know what, this is my aspirin substitute and I need it. And the, you know, side effects are way less than an aspirin. So anyhow, just, yeah, that's a good question though. I mean, what does Christy say here? Good to know. It would be like taking cough medicine. Yes, cough medicine has I think it has a higher percentage of alcohol in the dosage, you know, than like a tincture would have in some cases. So anyway, well, let's go on to glycerin now. Glycerin is a really neat substance. It's not my favorite to work with tinctures, but you know, it's sweet and it's great for kids and all that. So let's talk about what it extracts. So glycerin, get this, it's technically an alcohol. It's a byproduct of soap making. And so like when you combine sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, any kind of lye, with your oils, you're going to come out with soap. And you're going to have some leftover residues. That's glycerin, which is a fatty alcohol, okay? If you are using glycerin, it's really important to get food grade glycerin, because if you buy, you know, commercial grade or whatever, you might be ending up with the soap making byproduct instead of something that's truly food grade. So buy food grade if you're going to use glycerin. Glycerin, you know, somebody asked me the other day how powerful it is compared to alcohol, and I've heard other herbalists say it's about 50%. So, hey Marianne. So anyhow, but glycerin does not extract the same kinds of things. So glycerin does extract essential oils. It will extract astringents and tannins. So if you have an astringent herb that kind of dries your mouth out, it does a really good job with those constituents. It does great with sour herbs. So your lemons, you know, your citrus, which also have some bitter properties, will do very well with that. And then your tonic herbs, it does well with your sweeter herbs too. So glycerin is really good for those things. And luckily, many medicinals have those constituents in them. Now, you can mix, let me just mention this really fast. You can mix different solvents with each other. So you can do it during the tincturing process or the macerating process, or you can do it afterwards and just combine them. But like a lot of herbalists will add a little bit of alcohol to the glycerin because then they're going to get more extracted. Or you know, with the glycerin, you saw, oh, this is in the course, I'm sorry. I made a glycerite, which is a glycerin extract, and I added a little bit of water. I showed how to add water to it in a good proportion so that the glycerin, now the glycerite that comes out is going to have extracts from the water as well as extracts from the glycerin. So it's just a good way to get the best of both worlds. And once again, going back to the 80 proof, you know, I think a medium grade ethanol alcohol is better than a high grade in many cases. So, all right, so now let's move on to vinegar, unless there's any questions about the glycerin. Linda says, when I drove the school bus, I had to make sure I had taken alcohol, oh, in an 8-hour time frame. Oh, really? Did they, I wonder if they, how stringent were they like on the test? Because your blood, you get rid of blood, or blood alcohol, your blood alcohol level. I'm not a cop, so, but it goes down pretty quickly, I think, doesn't it? Maybe not. I don't know. Yes, and Melinda says vodka. Yes, I mostly use vodka. For all of my medicinal tinctures, I like vodka because it's tasteless, and I personally like to taste the herb in the tincture. So I like vodka for that. Now, if I'm doing something like a cordial, which is more for pleasure sipping or whatever, as well as medicinal, I might use brandy. I like brandy as a second choice. Many herbalists will use whiskey or some of the stronger alcohols, or the different, but I'm not really a drinker. I don't drink hard liquor. So honestly, my vodka purchases are for tincturing and medicine making. And you know, even I'll go into Costco and I'll have my vodkas lined up there, and people think I'm partying. No. And I try to explain, no, I'm making tinctures. And they are like, okay. It's just funny. Oh. Yes, Christy asked, when mixing menstruums, do you just replace part of the main menstruum with an equal part of the secondary menstruum? Not necessarily equal parts. This is where you have to be careful, and this is really getting into advanced herbalism and medicine making here, because you need to be sure that, okay, so like if you're mixing your water and alcohol, so okay, let's just take a step back. So the herbalists who like to use the really high proof alcohol, like 195 proof or whatever, which is like 95% alcohol, super high levels of alcohol, and it's only 5% water. If they want to have a 40% alcohol dilution, then what they're going to have to do is mathematically figure out how much water to add to a portion of the alcohol to dilute it so that it's a 40% dilution strength. So there's some math that goes along with that. And for me as a folk herbalist, and I you know me, I'm just like, keep it simple, silly. You know, if you use your 80 proof, then you don't have to dilute it to a 40% alcohol dilution. It's already diluted, right? So that's just my personal opinion. I just say keep it simple. Now, if you are formulating for, you know, some of the pharmaceutical companies, or for sale, you know, in a commercial sense, then yes, you definitely need to have your formulas nailed down tight. But most of us, you know, we're doing this for our own health and selves and our friends and our neighbors and the community, and we're not really going into it like at that high level, which takes a lot of money, by the way. So, all right, if we're, let me see, did I answer that? Let's see. Yeah, Melinda, it's hysterical, isn't it, when people ask you these questions? Okay, let's talk about vinegar now. So vinegar is a very popular menstruum, and it's okay. So vinegar, this is one of my pet peeves, and I don't know why. I don't know why it is. It's not that big a deal. I heard an herbalist the other day on Instagram, or read her post, and she was calling vinegar acetate. Well, vinegar is not acetate. They're very similar. Vinegar is acetic acid, and acetate is subtly different, but they're very different things. In my view, chemically they're different. But acetic acid is what makes vinegar vinegar. And for a vinegar to be potent for medicinal use, you want at least a 5% acetic acid ratio, okay? So that's why, like if you're using white vinegar or apple cider vinegar and you're buying it commercially from the stores, you can be pretty certain that it's 5%, and it should actually say that on the bottle. If you're making your homemade vinegar like I do, well, I use a pH tester just to see about what it is. And so I can test it that way. Generally speaking, I get slightly stronger vinegars than 5%. And because they're made with fruit, they're really tasty. So if you want to learn how to make vinegars from fruit, I've got a great, I've actually got a couple great blog posts. I've got one specifically for apple cider vinegar on the blog, and I've got one for general fruit vinegars. So as fruit starts to ripen this spring and summer, you might want to consider making some of your own fruit vinegar. And you can use them, yes, for tincturing and for macerating your herbs. So here's what vinegar will extract really well, okay? You can extract minerals with vinegar, some essential oils. Your pungent herbs are really great in vinegars, like ginger and turmeric. Some of your bitters will work in vinegar and some won't. So bitters are up in the air. And then vinegars, that's pretty much it for vinegars. They're mainly for just general health reasons and things like that. But they do not extract your tonic carbohydrates really well, which if you want to take a tonic herb, then vinegar is probably not going to be good for that. It does not extract your carbohydrate type constituents like your glycosides or your polysaccharides, okay? It does not extract mucilage, just like alcohol doesn't, vinegar does not either, and it won't work with oils. So as you can see, vinegar is kind of limited in what it will extract. Hey, good morning. Hey, Sian. And let me go back and see if I had any questions on this. Yes, I now understand why some sites were adding water to their tinctures. Yes, and you know, Mickey, it's a very viable and good way to make a tincture. There's a lot of math involved, and you know, again, why not just buy the alcohol in the dilution you need if you can get it like that, especially as a home herbalist. So, you know, my opinion. Alrighty, now let's go on to oil. You know, we do our oil extracts, and they're all lovely, and you know, we talk about fresh herbs versus dried herbs and all that good stuff, but you have to be aware that oil actually has some pretty good capabilities for extracting herbal constituents too, and since they're generally used topically, they soak into the skin. So these are all good things to know. With oil, oil extracts other oils, okay, because like attracts like. So essential oils are good to be extracted in oils. So if a plant like lavender or peppermint, if you extract those, you're going to get some of the essential oil from the plant leaching into the oil. So like when I create a lavender oil extract, I've noticed there's a very slight hint of lavender scent. It's not real strong because with the amount of lavender I'm using, there's not that much essential oil. To get a drop of lavender essential oil takes quite a bit of plant matter. So, but you can get, you know, little bits of smells in your oils if those plants have essential oils in them or other volatile oils. Aromatic and pungent herbs, oils do very good with those. So things like ginger, turmeric, your cayenne, that's why cayenne oil and salve is so excellent for your body. The oil can extract those constituents in there that are really necessary and good for your body. You apply it, it soaks into your skin. It actually gets into your bloodstream through your skin. Isn't that cool? I mean, so this is one of the reasons why I love my oils. Oils also extract well with other oily herbs and pretty much know everything else. So I know I've heard one of the herbalists, who is it? I think it's Cammie McBride, not sure, but I believe she creates her oil infusions with a bit of alcohol, like, you know, and I don't know how much, again, you know, and she does that so that she's getting some of the constituents from the alcohol into the extract. The thing is, you know, you've got to really think about how much alcohol you're using. If you're using only a tablespoon or whatever, and I don't know what her ratio is, I should probably try to find out, but it's not going to be a very strong alcohol extract in there. So, you know, is it useful? Yeah, I think so, to an extent, but it's pretty, it might also be very negligible. All right, so before I move on to the other question, which was the double or dual extractions, let's just go ahead and talk about, I want to show you another couple of books here. Oh, Melinda wanted to know what the red oil infusion was. Yes, this is St. John's wort, infused oil, okay? Christy says, when you say tonics, do you mean adaptogens? Well, not necessarily. Adaptogens can be tonics, and actually most of them are, because you can just use them daily. But a tonic is going to be something that you take every single day for, you know, health reasons, and they're not limited to adaptogens. So, you know, that's what a tonic is. And you've all heard me talk about Rich Ochek's book, Making Plant Medicine. It's a classic. I like that he goes into the different plants and the different ways to make them. So he'll talk about the different extracts in here. His tincture section or infusion section in the beginning is absolutely incredibly good as well. And he really breaks the math down nicely if you have that kind of a mind and you like to do the math. I don't. Just be honest. I'm a little lazy, and you know, I'm not making this stuff to sell. So this other one, I recommend this book. I think you should get it if you're serious about taking your studies further. It's actually used in a lot of the herbal, you know, universities, like I think Bastyr and some of the others. But it's by Thomas Easley and Stephen Horn, and it's called The Modern Herbal Dispensatory. And I like it because he writes in very clear language, and he has a great section on plants that's quite, he's got a lot of herbs in here that you can look at. So I like this book for your medicine making. For actual herbal plant medicine, tincturing, infusions, those are probably my two favorite books. And then, you know I love Rosemary Gladstar. Anything she puts out is great. So, all right, so now we're going to talk about extractions. So a dual extraction. This is going to be pretty similar to what I was just talking about a minute ago, but not quite. So let's take a plant like a mushroom, for example. Mushrooms have some really, really nice immunomodulating and health benefits. Depending on the mushroom, they're all kind of different. So they're not all going to do the same thing for your body. But with mushrooms, it's really hard to get a good extract. So what a lot of people will do who work with mushrooms, and I'm not one of them because I haven't found any out here yet, and we did not have them growing in the desert in southern Nevada, not the medicinal ones anyway. But what they'll do is they'll create a decoction of mushroom, and they'll create a tincture, an alcohol tincture of mushroom, and then they'll strain out the liquid, and then they'll combine them. So that's a dual extraction, and it's very useful, as you can see, for getting the water constituents that are extracted in water, and then the constituents that are extracted in alcohol, and combining them. Okay, so people will do that, and like I said, with mushrooms, that's a very common process. Now, another way you can do it is just by combining the alcohol and the water together and extracting it all at once. I've heard it being done that way too. So when we talk about using more than one menstruum, then you're talking about a dual extraction or a triple extraction or whatever. So let's talk about a double infusion, which is a little bit different. And a lot of herbalists will use these terms interchangeably, so it's good to find out, what they're doing. But so I've got this Usnea tincture, and I'm going to use this as my example. And it's been tincturing here for quite a while, since the fall when I picked the Usnea. And basically, it's a single infusion. It's only been infusing for a few months, and so what I'm going to do is double infuse it. I want to do it again because Usnea is a very dry herb, and it has a hard time releasing its constituents. So it's a nice idea to do it twice if you can. And this way, like, most tinctures or most herbs you don't have to do this with. A single is just fine, and you can get a nice medicinal, good strength tincture with one infusion. So that's good. Your 4 to 6 weeks or however long you want to leave it. In my case, sometimes many weeks, many more weeks. That's just fine. Now this is my Usnea tincture. It's nice and dark. It's actually quite strong, and we've actually used it this winter, and it works just fine. But I would like to have it be a little bit stronger because it's not nearly as strong as my golden seal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this Usnea that I gathered last fall, and I've got some scissors up here somewhere. And if you can powder this, that would be the best way to go. I'm just going to cut it into little pieces. Just cut it off here. The more of the plant matter that's exposed to the menstruum, the better. And we've talked about that before. But I'm not going to go crazy with this. And I'm not going to worry about little sticks that are stuck in there. And what I'm going to do, I don't know, can you see this? I guess you can. I'm just going to take this Usnea and get it into my jar. With Usnea, I like to fill the jar as much as I can and then pour my alcohol in. But in this case, I've already got my first extraction done. So I'm just going to do another one here. And you can get real crazy about the sizes and stuff. Again, I'm a simple person. I just kind of keep it simple. All right, let's see. We've got some questions here. So while I'm cutting this up, Melinda says she'd like to look into that second book. Yes, please do so. I've listened to Thomas Easley speak before, and I believe he's very knowledgeable. But I like the fact that this book has actually been chosen to be used in the universities. And like I said, it's not a hard to read book. It's very, very good. So again, what is it? The Modern Herbal Dispensatory. Okay. Melinda says, what will you do with that plant matter now? Okay, so the leftover mark, I'm just going to compost it. That's all. That's what I'm going to do with it. And then Christy says, how can you tell how strong it is, color and flavor? Yeah, you know what, when you're first starting to make tinctures, you don't know. You just don't know. I mean, when I first started back in the day, I didn't really know. I was all a big experiment to me. It seriously was, but over the years of making tinctures and making the same ones over and over and over again, you just learn if it's strong or not. After working with herbs for a while, fresh, dried, and poor quality, high quality, you learn what to look for in the quality of your herb. So, if you're like at the end of the summer, let's just say, and you run across a little patch of St. John's wort, well, if it's wilted and kind of on its way out, it's not going to be quite as strong as that beautiful fresh St. John's wort that you harvested in mid-July, right? So you might want to just use a little more or make some adjustments. Yes, and then Mickey says, did you use your Usnea as an antibiotic? Yes, that's how we used it. And how did you administer it? Tincture with a dropper. In fact, this is what we chose to use for our goats. We had a little goat kid who had an eye problem. So we gave her some doses of Usnea tincture in the morning and in the afternoon. Real small because she's a little tiny baby. But you know what? I think that really helped her. No adverse side effects, and actually she really liked it. she liked taking it. And animals are funny. I should qualify that. She liked taking it for about a week, and then after that she didn't want it anymore. And you know, that just tells you that animals, they have a sense of when they need something and when they don't. You know, they have such a much better sense than we have for that. Melinda says, but matter that was in oil should not go in compost, right? Right. I mean, you can. I mean, but oil is not really the greatest thing for your soil, probably. This is actually an alcohol tincture, okay? So Melinda, yeah, this was an alcohol, and I have no problems putting that in soil at all, okay? Did I dose by weight? Christy, I wish I could say I did. But no, we estimated her weight. We thought about, okay, how big is she compared to a human baby? And we kind of just went from there on the dosing. Didn't give her very much, but it did help. And then I also made a salve for her eye. So, you know, it was a combination of things that we did. Usnea is also really good for urinary tract infections. It's good for your respiratory system. But boy, it is definitely one of the more difficult herbs to make an extraction out of. You know, golden seal, you put it in water and you can see the color turning right away. It's very powerful. The constituents in golden seal tend to leach into the alcohol really well. And, you know, it's just that you can see it, where with the Usnea, it took it a while to get nice and dark like this. So, do you guys have any other questions about anything? Because what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to finish filling this jar with the Usnea pieces, and then I'm going to pour some alcohol over it to cover it the rest of the way. Put a lid on it, and then I'm going to let it sit for another 4 to 6 weeks, and I'm going to have a really nice double infused Usnea tincture made with 80 proof vodka. Okay. All right. While I'm cutting, I'll just see if there's any other questions. By the way, I think I'm going to write a blog post too on this topic, and actually I think I'm going to put a little module in the course on this topic as well, the topic of different extracts. I think that would be a nice little section to go right before all of the preparation methods that are in the course, and just give people some things to think about and put their minds at ease. You know, the questions that we get are pretty interesting as far as, you know, it really makes me realize that people do worry about things like, you know, dosing and strengths. And, you know, I guess I did too, you know, back in the beginning. And I forgot because I'm in a different place with the herbs. But yes, when you're just first starting and you haven't used these for a while, there's, you know, you've got some questions. And, you know, I still have lots of questions too. But now, you know, it's a matter of how important is the question, and mainly I'm answering a lot of questions for myself to continue my own learning. And by the way, as an herbalist, you're never going to learn everything. It's impossible. It's impossible to experience everything, to learn everything, and it's just so exciting because, you know, we have herbalists all over the world, and because of the internet, you know, we can learn so much and then apply it to what we're doing and experiment. Okay, so got some questions here. Okay, Mickey says, would you dose Usnea like in a pill form 2 to 3 times a day for 10 days? Yeah, anytime I am using an herbal antibiotic, I tend to do it very similarly to how a pharmaceutical would be done, and not because it's the right way to do it. It's just because if you're dealing with an acute situation and you're sick, you want to dose smaller herbal amounts more often during the day. So, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 times a day. Where, you know, if you're not using it, if you're using it for a more chronic situation, then you're going to take a larger amount fewer times a day, if that makes sense. So like, you know, you would drink 2 cups of tea or whatever once or twice a day. But and Christy says, is dual extraction and double infusion 2 different things? You know what, Christy? Okay, I'm just gonna say this. You're gonna hear herbalists use these terms, and they're going to use them somewhat interchangeably. Okay, so a dual extraction and a double infusion. You know what? If you think about the word meanings, it's pretty much the same thing, but it all boils down to how you do it. And so again, I'm just going to say, you might hear somebody talk about that or talk about those, and what you really need to find out is, okay, what exactly are they doing to make their dual extraction or their double infusion? I'm only saying that because there are a lot of self-taught herbalists out there, and I was self-taught. I still am self-taught, but then I've taken some courses, and the courses help clear some of these things up. But you have to recognize that people are going to be using somewhat of their own terminology, okay, especially in the herbal world, and that's fine, especially with folk herbalism. Okay, and then Christy, if you have, let's see. If you had a urinary tract infection, yeah, honestly, Mickey, Uzni is good for urinary tract infections, but it wouldn't be my first go-to, because I'll tell you what, if I get a UTI, I want it done, like right away. Those things are painful and horrible, and I haven't gotten one in many, many years. I wrote an article on the blog about those, by the way, because there's some things you can do to prevent them so they don't even happen in the first place. But yeah, I've got a whole article on the blog about things you can do about urinary tract infections. You can probably tell by the tone of my voice, I have been scarred by UTIs. Being a school teacher for many, many years, we had a schedule to keep, and we couldn't just go to the bathroom when we wanted to. You know, you've got like 40 kids staring at you. You can't just walk out of the room and say, hey, I'll be back in a minute, guys. Can't do that. You know, so teachers get really, really good at managing their bodies, but that's not always good because our bodies don't always go along with the schedule, right? And when you gotta go, you gotta go. But as a teacher, you can't necessarily. So I've got enough Uzni in there now. I'm gonna just fill that with alcohol. But anyhow, yeah, for UTIs, honestly, my favorite, and this is just because I lived down in the Mojave Desert for so long, was chaparral and juniper. Those 2 were my favorite herbs for UTIs. And I think, Christy, you're in that area where those grow wild, I believe, so, or you're pretty close by. Yes, yeah, Christy says look into what their definitions are. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, and do a little research on them, because you'll find on the internet, at least, that you'll find them being spoken about in different ways. I'm talking back again about the dual extractions and double infusions. Yes, Melinda says uva ursi. That's a great, or Christy says uva ursi. Yes, that's a great herb. And there's another one. I think it's related to uva ursi, and it's found in the Southwest. Is it mountain mahogany? Or it's manzanita. I believe it's manzanita. But those are also very good for UTIs. Yes, driving the bus is hard on the bladder. Oh yeah. 6 hours at a stretch. Oh my gosh, I just can't imagine. Yes, Christy says she can find chaparral and juniper. Oh, Christy, if you've never done anything with chaparral, you really need to. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite plants, and I would have to say it's the one I miss the most living here in Idaho, because it doesn't grow anywhere around here. And we had it all over the place in southern Nevada. I love that plant. But it's wonderful in infused oils. It's a great tincture. It's just a really great overall plant to use. So you can tell alcohol and oil are my favorite ways to use chaparral. But you can make a pretty powerful salve with it, and it smells wonderful. Oh yes, Melinda, I've got a whole article on juniper on the blog. Yes, you need to read that, because I go into juniper pretty pretty deeply. There are different kinds of juniper. The juniper that I always used and still do use is the kind that's found in the pinyon juniper belts. You know, where you, I don't know if they have these on the eastern side of the U.S., but on the western side in the mountain areas, you're going to go through different ecosystems, and they have what's called a pinyon juniper belt, and that's where we lived in the mountains of southern Nevada. Was in one of those. The juniper are everywhere, and they are highly medicinal, and there's a lot of things you can do with those. And I actually made a really a fun sugar scrub or salt scrub using juniper, and you can use it for cooking. So it's a really great herb. Not my favorite plant is a yard plant. Yeah, right? This is true. They're a little messy. And also you have to know this about juniper. You need to know the species names, because if it's growing wild in an area that you feel good about, like I did in southern Nevada, you can be, you could feel just very safe about using it because there's so many species of it. If it's a landscape plant though, like if it's been bred and it's a hybrid or some kind of species that's like a low growing one for landscaping, I probably wouldn't use it. I would definitely at least take a look at the scientific name of it and be sure that it's safe, because there are a couple of species of juniper that are toxic. Okay, so you don't want to use those. And like in Cedarville, they have those everywhere. Yeah. All right, you guys. I guess I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. I'm going to get out there and help Mr. V in the yard. I'm looking out the window, and that man works so hard. Oh my goodness. Well, so do I, in a different way. We always laugh because at the end of the day, my brain is tired because I write all day and I work all day in the office. And then I'm lucky if I get outside. And I do make it a point to get out there in the garden at least once a day and go visit the goats. But it's hard, and he works physically all day, like physically hard. So his body is tired. We always talk about which is worse. And I point out to him that the brain uses more energy than any other part of your body. It really does. Okay. Oh, you're welcome, you guys. Okay, I will talk with you later. Have a good week. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. And look for a blog post. I think I'll write this up on the blog, and I think I'm gonna add a module to the course, a really good module on all of this, because great questions, good stuff to know. And if you are considering a subscription site, or if you are considering, or if you are wanting maybe to learn about a single herb a month in depth, be looking for that, because I think I'm going to get that going here pretty quick, as quick as I can. Because I know myself, if I don't get it going fast, I won't do it. It'll just sit there on my back burner project thing, and it won't even happen. But it's not going to be expensive, and it'll be a way to, if you couldn't afford the course or don't want to take a big course, it's a nice way to keep that herbal education going and moving along. All right, you guys. Yes, it's so hard to get outside unless some plant is calling. So true, Sian. That's so very true. I know my big time is summer, because that's when the St. John's wort starts blooming, and the goldenrod, and I just love getting out there in the summer. And the elder, we have a huge elder tree down the hill on the neighbor's property, just waiting for it to go into bloom. I go pick some elder flowers. I know, right, Mickey? Too bad that brain energy use doesn't translate into weight loss, right? Oh my gosh. With you there, girl. Okay. Would your students get a discount? You know what, Melinda? That's a good question. What I think I'm probably going to do is do a discount for what I'll call the founding members. I'm actually taking a course right now on how to create a subscription site, 'cause I'm clueless. You know me, I don't do the tech thing very well. And that seems to be one of the things that most people do, is and I know Chris Dalziel has an herbal subscription site going on, and she did that too. She has founding members, and they had come in at a lesser price point and per month. And then as you get it going and more people join, then you can charge more if you want to or not. But honestly, that's probably what I would do. So I'm thinking like the first people who come in. But I'm keeping the course separate, just so you know. I've decided on this for sure. The course is not going to be part of the subscription site. The course is going to be its own separate entity, and it's going to be a good foundation and just a good connection or adjunct to the subscription site. So like you could do one or the other, or you could do both. And you know, I think if you do both, you're going to get a really good overall. But if you end up just doing the subscription site, you're still going to be learning an awful lot every single month. And this is really great for people who are time challenged as well. So I'm just thinking there's nothing but positives about doing this for people. And with the course, you know, you have to definitely be self-motivated and dedicate some time to getting through the course materials and actually doing the recipes, making the recipes. So, you know, there's some positives and negatives to both. And I think if I have both going on for people, then people could pick and choose, and it would be really good. So, hope that answered that. And then Mickey says, yeah, we'd all be skinny, right? I'd be a bone right now, just a little tiny twig. Not. All right, you guys. Glad you're here. Have a good week, and I will talk with you later on. All right, bye-bye. Oh, you know what? Let me just mention this really fast. I don't know if I'm going to do the live next week or not. I think what I'm going to start doing in this group, because this group has so many experienced people in it right now, I think I'm going to kind of, as I get the subscription thing up and going, because that's going to require a ton of time on the front end. But I think what I'm going to do is kind of back off on the videos. But then again, I may not, because you know what? I love doing these videos for you guys. I love hearing the questions, and I love just interacting with you. But the videos are also going to be part of the subscription site as well. So I'm working that out right now. And I also need to get into the course group more. It's just a really small group, so it's a little harder. And I may just roll the Confident Herbalist course group might have the subscription people in it too. So I might just combine all of them. But those are going to be people who are very invested in their herbal education and want to take it to the next level and are tired of just dabbling in books. That's what I really want to do here, is help people get to that next level.